this was actually a national phenomenon that happened in your hometown. And this urbanization of American cities is kind of the Europeanization of American cities. You know, Europeans often lived and worked in their city centers. Americans, we didn't, especially in the Midwest, because our downtowns were just different. First of all, we're surrounded by factories and warehouses, so it was dirty downtown, it was isolated downtown, there was nothing fun to do. All those things have changed. Those factories and warehouses are probably condominiums now. It's cleaner and there's tons of fun stuff to do downtown. So people are kind of redoing their lifestyle calculations, choosing to get rid of snowblowers and lawnmowers and minivans and kids and move downtown, be closer to work, and have a better quality of life because you're not wasting time in traffic. Over to the right, buildings and contextualism. Check this out. Look up here to the right. See these two curved buildings? Can you imagine they share the same radius? That is, the balconied residential building curves in at the same radius arc as the Hot Pocket office building curves out. Kind of fun, right? Contextualism. What's really cool, look over here. They're not only copying each other, they are both copying the radius on the curve of the New Eden building, Ferris Bueller's building, 1983 coming up. So here's three curved buildings sharing one particular feature, contextualism, hiding in a plain sight, making for a friendly skyline. Nerd alert, nerds wake up, we're going to talk about the obvious. The Y-shaped building right in front of us. It looks like a bottle of wine upside down on the ground. As we float past this 6-year-old office building, you're probably wondering, why is it built like a Y? And the answer is because it's trapped, it's pinched. The back 2/3 of that lot are occupied by active Amtrak Metra train lines that go underneath the plaza. That's what those round exhaust vents are for, so you can't build back there. On the riverside, the city requires a 30-foot setback from the river for public access. You can't build up there either. You're really pinched. That's a 39-foot wide base, about 10 meters. Now check this out, guys. This is kind of cool. What you got here is a very tall, very skinny, narrow-based office building in the Windy City. See the problem with that? Yes, the issue of sway. It's called drift. The buildings are dynamic.
Wow.
They are designed to bend but not break. The problem, that sway actually makes people nauseous. You get a little seasick in a moving building, so you gotta try to stabilize it. How do you do that? Well, it ends up, Chicago's pretty good at it. In fact, we're gonna talk about 3 nerdy building stabilizing techniques today, and they're all pretty cool. The first one, this building has what's called inertial slush damper tanks. And here's what it is, guys. Water. Inside the top floor of the building, there's 160,000 gallons of water in 12 tanks. Here's the way it works. Look at me for a second. When the building sways in one direction, the water in the tank simultaneously sloshes the opposite way, correcting for that movement. It's like a big giant water shock absorber, helps bring the building to rest faster. We'll talk about 2 other cool techniques later on. Over to the left, you got the Bank of America building. FYI, this guy's about 5 years old now. Takes about 3 years to build a skyscraper. This one cost about $850 million. You're gonna see $1 billion building later on. Remember, we just said too that the city requires a 30-foot setback from the river for public access. Look how this building dealt with that requirement on the left. They vaulted the 3rd floor with these giant tripod legs. Look at the size of those beams holding it up. All right, next. Strap yourselves in, seatbelts on, right, figuratively, because we are stepping into what we call our time machine. Okay, now we say that because these next 5 old buildings coming up on the right were built chronologically, sequentially. The only ones on the river lined up like that. So we're going to march through this little timeline. We're going to decode each of these old buildings, and they are going to tell us what was going on. right? It's our 3-minute TED Talk. This will be on the final exam. The first one you see to the right, Art Deco, 1929. Streamline verticality, roaring 20s, until the 20s stopped roaring. Remember your financial history, guys. What happened to the U.S. economy in 1929? Oregon knows the stock market crashed. Country goes into the Great Depression, followed by World War II. Check this out. Did you know, because of the Depression and the war, there was very little demand for new office buildings around the country between about 1930 and about 1957. That's a whole generation. Look up here to the right. You see the black box. When they reboot architecture in the late 50s, they reboot it all the way down to its essential core, the box. They leap into the modern age, and this is what they get, and it's called black box modernism. Now you got to respect these 50s and 60s, because what they were going for is the elegant simplicity of a classy, functionally beautiful machine to work in. Okay, they're cheap offices. Our question guiding us today in this Smart Tour quest is why? Why were they building cheap boxes for offices in the 50s and 60s? Well, you think about it, it's because this generation that built these were Depression kids, guys. They grew up in poverty, were naturally thrifty, conservative, tacaño, codo with their money, right? Didn't want to waste it on ornamentation, which they didn't, and they were busy building the whole infrastructure of our country. They didn't have time or money to sit around and argue about how many gargoyles they're going to put on their office towers, guys, right? They were just pumping them out. What do you need? An office building? You need it quick? You want it cheap? Let's see, now offices are square boxes. You put a bunch of them together, that's a big square box. Hey, look, a big square box of boxes. Put it where you want. 50s and 60s, the next one, the white one, 1970s. This guy's called the International Style. It's a generic universal building. You might have one of these in your hometown from the 70s. But the curved one in front of us, 1980s contextualism. Who was around in the 80s? Big hairbands, shoulder pads, leg warmers. The world was changing. They were out of the box. No more square thinking, because they wanted buildings that curved when the river curved. Buildings with reflective glass to teach society to get along in a changing world and context. Contextualism was born in the 80s. So here, this will be on the final exam, is the evolution of architecture. In summary, it went like this. From beautiful European cathedral-looking buildings like the Wrigley Building in the early 20s, to striped Art Deco in the optimistic late 20s, to conservative black boxes in the 50s, white boxes in the 70s, contextualism in the 80s, high-tech, high-performance buildings these days, and that is the end of our TED Talk. Ta-da! Ta-da! Yeah, give it up, guys. You guys just learned the evolution of architecture. You're going to do well on the test, I think. Wow. Over to the right. Our little Xbox building, architectural marvel, but it's a marketing genius, because there's a fitness center and a bakery keeping each other in business forever. Why didn't I think of that? Now, carbs and cardio, glutes and gluten. Perfect. Over to the left. See the gray building with the orange boxes? That is a giant to-scale You Are Here map. That orange Lego brick sticking out represents this building on the river. You can see we've come down the south branch of the Chicago River from Wolf Point. You can see the grid pattern of streets overlaid on top there, so if you get lost you can swim here and find your way home. Alright guys, we're going to do a U-turn eventually, but so we'll come back and talk about these other buildings, but for now, as promised, we're going to shift gears and we're going to tell some stories. Everyone loves story time. Gather around, right? We're going to tell 3 important stories that will help us understand Chicago and its good citizens, okay? And the first one is the story of the Great Chicago Fire. You guys may have heard we had a really big fire with the cow and the lantern and Mrs. Catherine O'Leary, right? Now, to tell that story properly, we're going to separate the tragic facts from the comic fiction, and the facts are these. 1871, 154 years ago, October 8th, Sunday night, 9 p.m., a fire breaks out in Mrs. Catherine O'Leary's barn, a few blocks to your right. No one knows how. The problem was the wind. Guys, there was a 30-mile-an-hour storm wind from the southwest, which creates a firestorm of horizontal flames that literally jumped across the river twice. People were like running for their lives as the fire chased them, right? Wooden buildings falling like dominoes and flames behind them. Now the fire raged for 30 hours, and by the time it was done, had burned down more than 17,000 buildings. That's a big number. Left more than 100,000 people, no home, no possessions. Killed 300 people and burned out 3.5 square miles of the city center. Everything you've seen would have been burned out by the fire. Those are the tragic facts. They're pretty tragic. The fiction is a lot more playful and fun than that, and the fiction comes in with how did the fire start? And in the end, nobody really knows. Okay, that's why there are myths and legends. We do know a few things. One, we know it started in Mrs. Catherine O'Leary's barn, right? 2, we know she was an Irish Catholic immigrant. 3, we know she owned a cow. And 4, we know that the city was angry. The city was looking to blame somebody. They were looking for a scapegoat, and of all people, they blamed her cow. Of all people, can you believe it, guys? They said Mrs. Catherine O'Leary's cow, intentionally and maliciously, they say, she kicked over a kerosene lantern which started the fire. Personally, I don't think it's true. I've known plenty of Irish cows. They wouldn't do that on purpose. Ireland, would they? No? I think the cow was framed, guys. I think it was a setup. I think the city just needed a scape cow. She started it, guys. I think it was a cowspiracy. I think it's utterly unjust. Stay with me. The city had a beef with Mrs. O'Leary just getting started. She pretty much had to hoof it out of town. Now, this is what I heard. Now, holy cow or cowabunga, I know there was a lot at stake, but I think it's time, Chicago, stop milking this cheesy story and stop crying over spilt lanterns and move on. That's the end of the tale. Come on, give it up, guys. Hashtag dad joke rule. You know, on the whole, only 2% of the people like cow jokes, but we'll skim past that. Best one, right? The fire was most people miss it. The fire was the worst thing. And some people think it was one of the best things to happen to Chicago. The first city of Chicago burnt down. This is the second city. That's one of the reasons it gets the nickname, the second city. It rose up out of the ashes of the old. So there's our first story, guys. Indeed, a story of destruction.
Wow.
Here's the second story. 22 short years after the fire had destroyed the whole city, Chicago had rebuilt itself well enough to be able to host the World's Fair of 1893. That's a pretty good comeback in 22 years, right? Now, the guy they put in charge was important. Okay, he was a young architect. His name was Daniel Barnum. He's kind of the visionary, heroic architect of Chicago. Now, he built the whole campus.
This is where the folks are.
I don't know what you think of this. Daniel Barnum was part of a philosophy of architecture in the late 1800s. It was called the City Beautiful Movement. What do you guys think of this? I think it's true. They believed that beautiful cities, that beauty itself has this inspiring, civilizing, dignifying effect on people, and beauty affects us. It shapes culture, makes us better people. That's what they believe. I think it's true. A lot of people came. That fair was important, guys, because it put Chicago back on the map after the fire. It inspired the city, actually gave us a desire for more beauty. They like what they saw. Here's what's going to happen. Our Captain Lair is going to take us up here and do our second U-turn. This time, we're going to head out towards the lake, which is, trust me, that's where you're going to get some amazing skyline photos. We'll give you a break time to do that. Here's the third. You guys doing okay? All right, here we go. Third story, last story. So Daniel Barnum grows up. He's a hero. He's a rock star. City leaders say, hey, Daniel, you're wicked smart. From Boston. You're wicked smart. Why don't you replan, reimagine, redraw the map of this industrial, chaotic city of Chicago in 1909? And he does. And he comes up with what we call the Daniel Burnham Plan for Chicago. Now, this is the first comprehensive urban city plan in the country, which means Chicago has been doing urban city planning longer than others and is very good at it. True story, 2 years ago, a young guy got off the boat, tells me he just got his master's degree in urban city planning. He said they spend the first 2 weeks of grad school studying the Burnham Plan of Chicago, 1909. It's kind of a big deal. Last tour, truly, a guy was, he said he's an urban planner. I said, you haven't heard of Daniel Burnham? He goes, of course I have. So he's kind of a big deal. Now, Daniel Burnham, remember him, City Beautiful movement. He wants Chicago to be, as he said, the Paris on the prairie. Here we are, the Midwest Plains, why not? Paris on the prairie, big boulevards, fountains, monuments, public art, great vistas. He wants Chicago to be a city in a garden. Not a garden in a city, that's a different priority. Think about it. In fact,
wait, is that the Willis Tower?
Citizen to be within walking distance to a park. 614 parks in the city of Chicago. 9% of the land is park space. Many of our 246 neighborhoods are named after the parks that they surround. I did in Home Park, New York City, in Lincoln Park. By the way, Lincoln Park, 1,200 acres. That's 1.5 times larger than New York's Central Park. Now, I'm telling you, this plan, guys, it shaped the face and the character of the city in so many ways. What was on this Burnham Plan of 1909? Well, Grant Park itself, the whole front lawn, the playground of the city of Chicago, Buckingham Fountain, all that. That's all landfill. Everything on the other side of Michigan Avenue was landfill. It was on the Burnham Plan. Museum campus, landfill, Burnham Plan. Navy Pier, landfill, Burnham Plan. The concept of the Riverwalk was on the 1909 plan. It took us over 100 years to achieve that one. We got a grid pattern of streets. East Coasters envious of this one. 18-foot wide alleyways through the city of Chicago. Alleyways are smart because that's where you put the trash, in the alleys, not on the front sidewalk, like they have to do in all the East Coast cities. So you can see we got a clean city from it as well. You know, many Chicagoans, guys, they might recognize Daniel Burnham's famous quotation. What do you think of this? I think it's beautiful. He said, "Make no small plans, because they have no magic to stir men's blood." Nice, we got this magically beautiful city, guys, that inspires and stirs our blood because he dared to dream big dreams. So hopefully you can see, really, these three stories we just told, they kind of go together. A fire destroyed, a fair animated, and a plan beautified. And it all goes back to an Irish cow that was framed. And they lived happily ever after, the end. Ta-da! Come on, give it up for the cow. There you go, guys. You know, the cow spent years in therapy dealing with guilt and shame. In prison, poor cow. Swing to the right. Do you remember the Corn Cob Towers? Same architect, same idea. Bertrand Goldberg strikes again another city within a city. Goldberg and Burnham, by the way, those are these social scientist type architects, more interested in building citizens and communities. It's all about how we live together, who we become. It's not just slapping up buildings.
That building has to be what I think it is.
We're going to talk about Chicago's royal couple, our king and our queen. It's not my wife and I. Can you see the king of Chicago? I bet you can. If you look straight ahead, tall, dark, and handsome, two big white antenna, the Sears Willis Tower. There's the king of the hill.
Yep.
Can you see the queen? Just this side of it. It's the octagonal-shaped pink building with the barrel crowns. Looks like a chess piece of a queen. In fact, let's start there. When that building, the octagonal-shaped building, debuted in 1990, those barrels were illuminated at night so brightly that migrating birds thought it was the moon and got disoriented on their flight path. So they now actually turn those lights down in the bird migration season, spring and fall. And then the king, you guys ready for it? Tall, dark, and handsome, the king of the hill, the star of the show. It echoes in everyone. The Willis Tower. Unless you're from Chicagoland, you might still be calling it the Sears Tower. 1974, 51 years ago, Sears department store. Which kiddos? That was the Amazon of the day. You used to have to go to a mall to go shopping, right? No, that's true. You used to shop out of a big paper catalog. What's a catalog? It's like a phone book. What's a phone book? You gotta Google that. Sears, 1974, Sears department store builds the tallest building in the world in the Windy City. You see the problem with that, guys? Tall building, Windy City. Wait a minute, the issue of sway. It's actually called drift. Did you know the top floor of the Sears Willis Tower can safely sway a design limit of 18 inches in each direction in a heavy wind? That's 3 feet. That's enough that people can feel it. It's enough that water sloshes around in a toilet. Now, how did they deal with it? Here's our second of 3 nerdy building stabilizing techniques. This is pretty cool too, and it's as if they built 9 buildings and kind of grouped them together into a 3x3 grid at the base, like a bundle of straws. Imagine the Sears Willis Tower is made of 9 columns of differing heights. Okay, each column is 75 feet by 75 feet square, and they are grouped or bundled together, which keeps the building from swaying too much. Now, only 2 of the 9 columns go all the way to 110 floors. The Sears Willis Tower is 1,451 feet tall. That's 442 meters. And you measure a tall building from the threshold of the door of the lowest open air public entrance up to the top of the structure or permanent spire. Those are temporary antenna. They're not permanent. They don't count. New buildings have spires. They're permanent, blah, blah, blah. Sears was the tallest building in the world for 24 years, which is a really long time to keep that title. Now, the name. By the way, real quick, the current tallest building in the country is called One World Trade Center in New York City, which is the patriotic height of 1776. However, did you know the roof of our Sears Willis Tower is actually 83 feet taller than the roof of One World Trade Center? Their building is considered taller only because it's got a 408-foot spire sticking up on it. So that's kind of architectural cheating, right? Now, the name, Sears Department Store, left the building in the 1990s. That was pretty sad, guys. It was a big employer here. And the Willis Insurance Brokerage Group has been leasing 3 floors and leasing the naming rights since 2009. Nothing personal against Willis. They are a fine company. They're good people. It's just that many Chicagoans like me are stubborn, nostalgic, and lazy, and still call it the Sears Tower. Okay, so you're going to hear it go both ways. The Sears Tower is the Willis Tower. The Hancock is different. Kiddos, check this out. Here's something fun. Did you know 2 people have successfully scaled, free climbed the outside of the Sears Willis Tower, bottom to top, with no ropes and with no permission? Yep, the first one, an American climber named Dan Goodwin did it. They call him Spider Dan because he was wearing a Spider-Man outfit, which is pretty cool, right? Now, the second one to do it was a Frenchman named Alain Robert. They call him the French Spider-Man. I don't speak French, but I think he said, "Hold my beer." He went up in an hour and 20 minutes. Now, both of them made it successfully. Both of them were arrested successfully. You can't do that. Which didn't stop Alain Robert. He went on to climb all of the tallest buildings in the world, including the current tallest building in the world, which is the Burj Khalifa. It's in Dubai. Now, besides being gloriously beautiful, my wife and I are saving to go visit there next year. Burj Khalifa is 2,717 feet tall, 828 meters, makes it a little less than twice as tall as our Sears Tower. Now, why do we talk about that super tall building here in Chicago? It's because the lead architect of that tallest building in the world is Adrian Smith from Chicago, who built our Trump Tower. That's why we call him the world's tallest architect at 5'7", and that's how Chicago keeps claim to tall buildings, by designing them. Keep looking up to the right. You'll see the 5 glass boxes sticking out from the 103rd floor sky deck. And you'll see, look up there, you'll see brave people have stepped out onto about 1.5 inches of glass and are looking down through their feet at you, hoping the glass doesn't crack again. Most Chicagoans would suggest Sears Willis Tower by day, that's the sky deck of the ledge, but then Hancock Tower by night, that's 360 with the glass tilt. How do you get here? The smart way, you take a water taxi. It takes you from where we get off the boat right to the base of the Sears Tower. Later on, guys, we're going to talk about the discounts you get with your Arctic Tour ticket. So keep your ticket. Huge discounts on 2 different things. So there's a nice view right there. You know, Chicago, guys, I think holds the world record. This might be, I think it holds the world record for most.
Don't you, Ian? Look at that. Isn't that cool?
Nicknames.
That tower
I
on the
have about
front.
Yeah.
a dozen nicknames. Check this out. The second city, you know, one of the reasons, the first one part now. The Windy City. Actually, 2 reasons for this one. One, the obvious, it's usually pretty windy, but before that, when Chicago was campaigning to host the World's Fair of 1893, Chicago sent its politicians and promoters to Congress to campaign, and they couldn't stop bragging about Chicago. Congressman called them those windbag blowhards from that hot air blowing windbag city of Chicago. That's not so bad. I'm a windbag. Also called, here we go, ready? Siberia, after a couple bad winters, got to -20 4 years ago. Chi-Town, the city on the lake. The Paris on the prairie. The city in the garden. The city of broad shoulders. The hog butcher of the world. The city of neighborhoods. And from the Robert Johnson blues song, made famous by the Blues Brothers, Sweet Home Chicago, right? But the name Chicago actually comes from the Potawatomi Native American term describing the smell of the plants in this location when it was first being settled. Chicagoa, which means stinky onion. So yeah, New York's the Big Apple, and we're the big stinky onion. Proud of that. Nowadays, guys, honestly, if you smell an onion here, it's probably a restaurant. Chicago's a big foodie town. All kinds of celebrity chefs, fancy restaurants. You're not going to go hungry in Chicago. We'll talk about food later on. Next, like any good teacher, is the show and tell section of your tour. I'm going to show you something up here and then tell you about it. Can you see what I'm holding up? This is the city of Chicago's flag. Now you're going to see this flag and derivations of it flying proudly all over the place. Hats, t-shirts, tattoos. Chicago loves its flag. By the way, this is the cultural equivalent of I Heart New York. This just means I love Chicago. I'm wearing a t-shirt right now. Let me explain it for you. It's got 2 blue horizontal stripes, stand for the 2 bodies of water, the lake and the river. The 3 white horizontal stripes stand for the 3 sides of Chicago. You got the north side, south side, west side, east side's the lake. And the 4 red 6-pointed stars stand for the 4 F's of Chicago's history. The fort, the fire, and 2 fairs. Fort Dearborn, 1803. First military settlement this far west. The fire of 1871, we talked about that. The World's Fair of 1893, we talked about that. Then there was another World's Fair in 1933. So Fort Fire, 2 fairs. The bridges. Yes, the bridges open and close, guys, like giant teeter-totters, and they do it about 50 times a year. Mostly spring and fall for the sailboat flotilla. They do it on Wednesdays and Saturday mornings. Here's how it works. The sailboats with their masts up, they come in groups of about a dozen. They get to a bridge, city workers shut off traffic, and they open a bridge. The sailboats pass through, they shut that bridge and go to the next and pulse their way bridge by bridge through the city. It's kind of fun. Over to the right, real quick, see the purple Ernst & Young building? The purple building is a green building in the eco-friendly, low-carbon footprint, environmentally conscious sort of way. It literally has a green roof with plants watered by recycled drinking fountain water. Chicago wants to be the cleanest and greenest city in the country. Well, let's wait for that. Okay, nerd alert. Nerds, check this out. It's kind of cool. I think so. Do you know that these bridges are made of steel? And you know that steel expands and contracts a little bit with temperature. That means the gap in the bridges is changing with temperature, right? The colder it is, the metal shrinks, the gap gets a little bigger. The hotter it is, the more it expands, the gap closes up. What happens if it gets too hot? like it did a couple summers ago. Oh yeah, State Street Bridge expanded too much and was pinching itself shut. What did they do? They called in the fire department boats to come and spray down the bridge with water to cool the steel enough. It would shrink enough so they can get it popped open like sailboats through. I got photos because I'm a nerd and I think that's pretty cool. You guys think that's cool? Yeah, y'all becoming nerds. How we all doing, guys? Doing all right? Got a beautiful day for this. It's kind of a little breezy up by the lake, too. Back into Wolf Point, guys. 360 degrees of amazing. This could be you guys strolling on the Riverwalk after the tour. What's a beauty happen? The next building, right in front of us, the huge, gantuous, ginormous Art Deco merchandise mart. Check this out. Did you know in 1930, this was the largest, not the tallest, building in the world? How big? 25 floors, 43 elevators, 96 acres of floor space. That's 73 football fields of office space. I love this one. Ready? 7.5 miles of hallway. Had its own zip code. 2 city blocks, a big building. Most of the tech offices these days, Motorola's in there, and they are lighting it up at night. Now, this is something y'all could do every night for free. We like that price. As we come under this next bridge, over to the right, at eye level, against the wall of the Riverwalk, in just a second, you're going to see a dark glass box. You'll see it. And behind this dark glass is an $8 million, very sophisticated projector system that every night in the summer, I think it's 8:30 this time of year, check the website, projects digital animated art, local artists, and projects it across the river onto the entire front face of the merchandise mart. Now it's called Art on the Mart. That is the largest permanent art display in the world. It's a 2.5-acre screen. The entire thing is illuminated and dancing. It's beautiful. Nerd alert, look to the right. You'll see the glass box. Did you know they programmed these 34 projectors to shine onto the entire facade of the building except for all of the windows? They calibrated with lasers to mask and not shine in the windows and bother people that are working late, which I think is pretty cool. Swing to the right. See these stainless steel posts at the base of which are these floating gardens. They're called fish hotels. Now the idea is the roots of these water plants grow down there underneath in the summer, creating a mini habitat so that some of the native species of fish can repopulate the river by having a place to spawn. 1970s, they say there were about 10 species of fish in the river. Now there's over 70. The river's coming back to life. All right, guys, for the next 15 minutes, eyes up, cameras up, without blocking views, please. Because we're coming into what Jim thinks is just one of the most beautiful sections of Chicago, all right? The buildings, the bridges, the river, the sky. Here's really what I want. I want you to relax. I want you to open up your soul. And I want let the beauty of this city sink in. And as Burnham said, stir your blood. I love this thing. Just keep the cameras rolling. Next street, LaSalle Street. Check this out. Did you know in 1930, according to the Burnham Plan of 1909, they needed to widen LaSalle Street to turn it into a boulevard, which it is, and a beautiful one. The problem they had was this. Red brick grocery warehouse building on the left was in the way. So what did they do? Kind of clever, a little sneaky. They just sacrificially chopped off the entire leftmost section of this building, leaving it imbalanced as evidence. Look to the left and count. There are 5 bays of windows to the left of the clock tower, but count on 6 bays of windows to the right of the clock tower. You can really tell it's lopsided because they cleaned up the brick facade on the left to mirror the other side, kind of cover up the crime, but you know the truth. Now, swing, look at all the people on the Riverwalk. Swing to the right. Okay, guys, see this short, squat little building, number 55 I'm pointing to. Can you all see it? You know what we call that? The Danny DeVito building, stuck between 2 supermodels. This guy is a short-lived architectural style from the late 60s. You'll have seen this mostly on campuses, government buildings, morally sturdy institutions. The name of the style? Brutalism. rough exposed aggregate concrete. Looks like a fortress, and it is sort of hunkered and bunkered against the tumultuous time in U.S. history, late 60s. Think of what's going on. Next, can you see our champagne bottle? I bet you can. If you look in the skyline, you'll see in front of us you got it? It's a skinny green Art Deco building with real 24 karat gold foil. It's the Carbide and Carbon building. It's on Michigan Avenue. You walk right past, it's now the Penny Hotel. You walk right past it as you go down Michigan Avenue to see the beam, which if you haven't seen the beam, you gotta see the beam. All right, guys, keep your cameras up. Some beautiful stuff to the right. Meanwhile, as promised, I'm gonna shift gears and we're gonna talk about food. Might be hungry soon. Let me talk, you know, it's my opinion, guys, Chicago seems to be most famous for deep dish pizza, Chicago-style hot dogs, and Italian beef sandwich. Now, deep dish pizza, everyone has their fave. They're all very good. My wife and I like Lou Malnati's. They got a good sausage, pepperoni, butter crust. There's one in the Wrigley building where we got off the boat. My wife and I got married on one of the boats we had Lou's for. That's our anniversary. The Chicago-style hot dog. Wherever you see a sign that says Vienna beef, that's the main brand. You get a good Chicago all-beef hot dog, and you want yours with everything on it. They call that drugged through the garden because it comes out with pickles, peppers, relish, tomatoes, onions, mustard, celery, salt, everything except ketchup. It's a Chicago thing. You just don't put ketchup on a Chicago hot dog. You know why? Because it's a misdemeanor crime. You get a night in jail. You throw it in the lake. You make fun of it.
I think ketchup on that.
Look at the view to the right. Chicago Italian beef sandwiches. My wife and I are connoisseurs. Let me explain the Chicago Italian beef. Thinly sliced roast beef, cooked in its own seasoned juice. You take a hunk of beef, you put it in a French roll. You take the French roll and you dunk it back into the juice. You put some giardiniera peppers on. It's kind of soggy, a little hard to eat. Very, very tasty. There's a place called Portillo's, right? 15-minute walk in that direction. Corner Clark in Ontario. They got really good hot dogs, Italian beef sandwiches, and they're also famous for their chocolate cake shake, which is as decadent as it sounds. Look to the right. Look up there. See London House? You know that's the #3 best rooftop bar in the country. They got beautiful views. Go get a cocktail up there. Next building, going back in time, over to the left, you see the white Wrigley building, early 20s. Right across the street from you, see the Chicago Tribune Tower. This is also early 20s. This is called French Gothic Revival. It's modeled after a cathedral in Normandy, France, complete with flying buttresses. Those are those decorative bridges that are artificially buttressing the central tower. Now, just a couple years ago, they completed a gut rehab, turning it from old newspaper offices into, surprise, surprise, high-end $8 million condos. Need one of those. Here's some nice photos. Keep the cameras rolling, guys. Right here to the left, you got all the flags and all that. Now you know what that is. Remember we said, in the early 1920s, they were still importing European-style cathedral beauty, right? The Wrigley building, modeled after a Spanish cathedral. The Trib Tower, modeled after a French cathedral. And then, about 10 years ago, into our neighborhood of cathedrals, we get a temple of technology, and it's the Apple Store. It is a high-tech temple, guys, in and out, because that glass is structural, helping hold up the carbon fiber roof. See how the roof looks like an iPad or a MacBook Air floating up there? Isn't that kind of fun? Do you know people are having trouble finding the Apple Store standing right next to it in Zeller Plaza? Last week, a person got off the tour and said, I know you talked about the Apple Store, Jim, but I couldn't see it. Which one is it? Well, it's right there. Our next building, guys, to the left, you're going to get a very quick glimpse of the John Hancock Tower. It's in between these two buildings. It's a half a mile to the north. You'll recognize it because it's an iconic black trapezoid. Wider at the bottom, narrow at the top, two big white antenna. This is the one with 360 and the glass tilt. About a 15-minute walk north. Look to the left. Quick look at the Hancock Tower. Boom, there it is. Next building, guys. You don't want to miss this one because this is one of Jim's favorites. Look to the right. Everybody, look up here. See James Hardy, the black box building I'm pointing to? Everybody got that? It's boring. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the one in the second row behind it. It's obscured right now, but it's going to come into view in a sec. You're going to see a really cool building. It has these white horizontal curvy fins sticking out. It's not the hourglass building. We'll talk about that next. It's over here behind James Hardy coming into view right now. See it? It's called Aqua Tower. High-end residence and hotel. Each unit up there has its own unique balcony. Those are balconies, which together makes the building look like waves of cascading water. Isn't that cool? This one is designed by Chicago native star architect named Jeannie Gang. She is a Chicagoland native. She is a Harvard grad, so she is wicked smart. And she is a genius. She won the MacArthur Genius Grant. She's actually a card-carrying genius. And she's been busy. Look up to the right. You can see her latest masterpiece, this blue hourglass-shaped stair-step building. This one's hers as well. It's called the St. Regis. It's a high-end residence and hotel. Cheapest hotel room. This is $800 a night. They call it the Dr. Seuss building, swerving and dancing there. Now this guy is the third tallest building in Chicago. But this is the tallest building in the world. It's been designed by a woman-led architecture firm, Jeannie Gang, breaking the glass ceiling, all out for many. Nerd alert, this is nerdy, some of you may know this. You know that this Chicago River is the only river in the world that has been permanently reversed. Yep, it used to flow naturally out into Lake Michigan in front of us, but now it flows to the west, down the Mississippi River, all the way to the Gulf. Let me explain why and how. In the late 1800s, the Chicago River used to naturally flow out into Lake Michigan, but it was so polluted with industrial waste, it was flowing out there and contaminating the drinking water we were getting from Lake Michigan, causing all kinds of illness. Well, you can't have that. So there was no environmental consciousness at the time. And so what they did was, they called in the Army Corps of Engineers, and for 11 years did the biggest engineering project of the century. They dug a 28-mile canal out to the southwest, and it crossed a local continental divide. It means it connected to the this river system on the other side. It was lower than the lake, and so when they opened the locks, the water flowed backwards and continues to flush clean green Lake Michigan water to the west, all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. It's pretty cool. It's still that way. Over to the left, you can see the Ferris wheel of Navy Pier. Navy Pier, guys, remember, it was on the Burnham Plan of 1909. Now it's one of the biggest cultural attractions in the Midwest for Chicagoans and visitors alike. How do you get there? Well, you take our water taxi. Takes you from where we get off the boat right to the base of the pier. What do you do when you're out there? 1, the Ferris wheel. 2, you take the shoreline sightseeing lake cruise. It's a 45-minute lake cruise, guys, and it takes you way out on the lake. The really cool thing is you get a huge discount with your architecture tour ticket. Check this price. You can take the 45-minute cruise for $6. $3 for kids. It's a no-brainer. So get out to Navy Pier, take that tour. Speaking of good views, here's what's going to happen. Our Captain Lair is going to eventually take us way out here and do our last U-turn. And this time, as he turns around, he holds sideways for a little bit for you. You're going to have a nice little piece of some Chicago skyline. So if you were thinking about snapping that group or family photo, good time for you to plan to do that. We ask a couple of things, please. 1, just don't step on benches and chairs to take the photos. And 2, you're invited to help each other with photos. Guys, instead of watching every group struggling to take a selfie with 6 people, why don't you take one of them and they'll take one of you and you pay it forward. You be kind. You ask for help. We call this our Chicago photo etiquette. It's how we roll. Last call to go to the bathroom in the bar. We're coming into our dock in a little bit. We need to hurry off the boat. Guys, as we finish the U-turn and start heading back, that's our cue, and we're going to start the tour again. So that's when we come back to our seats when we finish the turn. Sound good? Meanwhile, stand up, stretch your legs, take some photos, and we'll get started in just a little bit.